Good afternoon, everybody. I'm looking here and okay, there it is. Welcome. This is session number 8, and I use the number 8 because I don't want to say this is our last session. It feels terrible to say it's our last session. It's just session number 8. Yeah. So maybe we're going to have many more sessions, God willing. Welcome to the Family Life Fall Tune-Up Series, Northeastern Conference. And it's been good to be with you for all these 7 sessions previously, and we're happy to be with you again today for session number 8.
I am Pollyanna, and you are?
I am Baldwin Barnes and Pollyanna Barnes, and we are here to share with you the most fundamental thing there is in the universe. At least that's what we say.
Yeah.
All right. Any more?
So what is today about?
Today is about a 4-letter word. It's about love. It's all about love. Love is what it's all about. And, as an attribute, I'm thinking here, Pollyanna, as an attribute of who God is, there's a timelessness and a thinglessness to love. And so I think that this word, which symbolizes a concept and symbolizes a thinglessness, and I think it's in the middle. It's in the middle of the universe in terms of if you have everything going in a circle, there is, as I say, a timelessness and a thinglessness to it. But at the same time, when you go all around the universe and you come back, before you get back to thinglessness and timelessness, there is a thingness to love. It is something. And we're going to talk about how in the somethingness of love, it's manifested in the world as like a real thing, especially in terms of the impact that it has on the manifested world of things, particularly like you and me, particularly like children. One of the things I want to emphasize, well, I'm probably not even going to talk about it, but I want you to think about the thingness of love, how it impacts children, because I proclaim that you can see the effect of children, the effect of love on children, and in that way, I think that's the fullest manifestation of the thingness of the thinglessness of love.
Well, I love it, Baldwin, but we're going to talk more about that.
We're going to talk a lot about that because that's what this is all about.
Thinglessness of love.
Yes.
And but let's begin with a word of prayer.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Lord, we thank you so much for having been with us through the past 7 sessions, and we are ending this series with today with nothing more important and fundamental than love, your love. And so as we expound on love today, we pray that your spirit lead and the words that come out of our mouths to come directly from you, and that those who are listening and participating, that their hearts may be open to love and to your love. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So in finishing our idea about those of us who joined us on the platform, we just want to say again, welcome to everyone, those who have joined us from near and far. We have folks on the platform. I saw earlier in the comment section, we have folks from North Carolina. We have folks from all over the place. So I want to thank everyone who has been with us for the past few sessions. And wherever in the God's creation you're from, whether it's Northeastern or points far away, welcome again. All right, well, let's get started.
Yes. Love. So today we are talking about mastering love. And so we're starting with love. What is love? And just delving into different characteristics of love. And then we can look at how to master it. Yeah.
All right.
So let's go back to the thinglessness of love.
All right. Someone was saying that sound better now. I hope so. The thinglessness of love. What is love, you say?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
Do you remember that? Here's the thing. The thing is, if something is thingless, timeless, then it is also defineless. Yeah. So because that we operate, we come from, we dwell in, we exist as things in time. You know, it's like a fish is in water, right? So if we are in this thing, this is where we come from, you know, time and three-dimensional, you know, space. It's hard for us to contemplate existing outside of that thing that we're inside of, which is time and space. Well, and I'm here saying that love is something that's beyond time and beyond space.
Yes.
So how can a being that's dwelling in time and space define something that is transcendent to beyond time and space?
Well, we talk about God.
We talk about God, and we talk about love, and we talk about...
And God is beyond time and space.
Yeah. Okay, so what is love?
And we say God is love.
That's what the book says. Yeah.
So,
in 1 John, it says God is love.
Right.
And it doesn't say that God loves like in something that he does, which he actually does love, but it says God is love.
That's correct.
So ontologically, in terms of who he is being, he is love. So keep talking. I'm trying to hear what you're saying. So let me put it this way. Let me see if I get what you're saying.
Yes, what I'm saying.
Yeah,
okay.
What you're saying.
All right.
You're saying that this God, who is love, is desirous of us manifesting in time and space who he is beyond time and space.
That's correct. Among us.
Among us.
Yes.
So then how do we translate, or as beings who are commissioned to manifest something that's beyond us, how do we translate that unmanifested world into this manifest world of things and space, when the thing that we're trying to manifest in this world is beyond this world?
Yeah. And so at the same time, there is a connection with that world, that world and this world.
Tell me about it.
There is a connection between God and love, since God is love, and us.
Okay, and what's that connection?
So, you mean what's the connection between God and us?
Yeah.
Well, let's expound on that, because if we are talking about love, right? We must have experienced what love is from God, who is love, the generator of love, from that world to this world, for us to be able to sit down and audaciously talk about love. So
okay, so
let's look at the connection.
I will agree that we have experienced it.
Yeah.
and I think that one of the reasons we have such a challenge talking about it is because we experienced it before we experienced language. So before there was language, we were already submersed in love and what love is. We were already wrapped up in love, cocooned in love, and we came from love before we ever had language to deal, with what love is. Your turn.
I'm gonna let you continue with this. I just love it. By the way, I like for us to talk more about the thinglessness and timelessness of love as related to God and to us. So let's talk about that. The thinglessness of love. I mean, because the way we interact with love on this side of the universe, right, is that love is a thing. And we want to see it, feel it, and know that it exists, right?
Okay.
And so we are putting a form into it in such a way that when we see love or we are in the presence of love, we know it's love.
Okay. So knowing that a thing is a thing is what you're asking us to do, to know what love is, because we have experienced it and we're able to share it in such a way that someone else knows that it's love. So what I'm hearing you say is that we can know a thing even though we may not be able to strictly define it, or it's not tangible. We can't touch it, but yet we know what it is.
We know it exists. Yeah, and it's really interesting, Baldwin, when you look at the love, this thinglessness of love, and thinglessness of God. And that's why God say God is love. Because, so you have those two that are one, that are manifested in our lives. And we ought to take that thinglessness and bring it here and make it tangible.
So today, mastering love is what you say this is all about.
Right.
Mastering the ability to transpose or presence love from the unmanifest into the manifest.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So now let's have some examples of what that is, that what you just finished saying. Examples of that love being manifested. What is the scripture you have here? Well,
there are various scriptures that I could quote. When Paul, in Second Corinthians 13, which is like the famous
First Corinthians.
First Corinthians 13, which is the famous or the most known description of love, characteristics of love. He says love is patient, love is kind, it does not brag, it is not puffed up, it is not rude, it is not self-serving, it is not easily angered or resentful. It is not glad about injustice, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things. That's First Corinthians 13 verses 4-8. So it really gives the characteristics of love. Because you can ask someone, love is, finish it.
And that's what you're saying from these verses.
Yeah.
That's the answer to the question love is.
Yeah.
Patient.
Yeah.
Kind.
So manifesting love is by exhibiting those characteristics. So it's really taking it such that bring it down here so that people can say, yeah, when you watch someone with their baby, because really that's the best way that you can describe human displaying love to another human being. It's a parent with that child, a mother with their baby. That's a mother. And they show kindness, they show patience. And it's interesting that the first characteristic in this passage is patience.
Doesn't it sound like she's trying to say something? She's trying to talk to somebody, right? Somebody who's not 1,000 miles away from her. I think that's who she's trying to talk to,
So when we look at these characteristics and we say love is patient, love is kind, but there's something behind all of that. I'd say. I think that in order to be able to display, I wouldn't say display, but to express all these things, as all these as the expression of love. Behind that, there's an overall, like an umbrella, under which all these go, and I would say it's acceptance. I would say acceptance of the other, exactly as they are, exactly as they're not, motivates or drives you to be this way. You got to accept people as they are. I mean, to be patient, I have to accept.
All right. So
I need to accept, not have to.
Well, so when you're saying accept, you're saying not having any interest in the other being any different from what they are. That's what you're saying here.
Repeat that.
Accepting is not having any interest in the other being any different from what they are.
That's correct.
All right. But
well, you may have an interest. You may have a desire, but because you love, you put those in the back burner in order to love, in order to express love. Because when that desire, gets in the way, that person is not present to love. They're present to you, your desire.
All right. So listen. So the fact is, so let's accept what you just said in terms of like definition. Like love is accepting the other exactly the way they are and exactly the way they are not. And yet before dwelling in this space called love, what we, the natural human being, is present to is that we don't want the other to be the way that they are. In fact, we want them to be different from the way that they are. The natural human being wants the other to be the way we want them to be, rather than allowing them to be the way that they are and accepting them the way that they are.
Yeah, because when they are the way we want them to be, then they become worthy of our love. You see? Yeah.
And so we're trying to make them worthy of our love. And at the same time, when we try to make them worthy of our love, we put them out of existence in terms of being who they are. So, so I don't want you to be how you are. I don't accept you the way that you are and the way that you're not.
At least some characteristics.
At least one characteristic at a time.
Right.
Maybe
at a time.
Maybe a multiplicity of characteristics.
Exactly.
And so we're fighting the differences. What is it that we don't accept is the differences that we are.
While differences are universal. I mean, that is the one thing that is present among all human beings.
And not only is difference universal, but difference is the only thing that makes us different. Can I say that? Difference is the only thing that differentiates.
Unique.
Yes.
Unique.
Difference is the only thing that makes us unique from each other.
Right.
And without us being unique from each other, we would be the same.
And we would not be attracted to each other or
anything. Yeah, none of that.
So then what is it that causes us to want to let's say to resist differences to the point where we want to change the other to make them worthy of our love?
It's this madness that we have. It's a delusion. We live inside of a delusion that if the other was more like what we want them to be, rather than exactly who they are and who they're not, we live inside this illusion that life would be grand, life would be wonderful if they were more like what we wanted them to be, rather than exactly who they are and who they're not. And that delusion leads us into having tension and friction between each other, and we lose the mastery of love over ourselves, because that's really where the mastery of love is in terms of dealing with self. When we say mastery of love, we're not talking about mastering love in terms of the other person.
Right.
Mastery of love is over here where you are, where I am.
Right.
And in managing myself in love, love then gets manifested from me to the other. And that is something really marvelous to understand and to accept.
Yeah, so in mastering it, then there needs to be self-awareness.
Self-awareness. That's a big word or a big concept. Self-awareness. That could take me down a big winding path. Let me see what. That could take me down a big winding path. The self-awareness. I think that most of my life has been spent in a place that's called no awareness. Some other people would call it clueless. And in this
unreal.
In this space of being clueless, there is no mastery of love, because I've been spending my time, instead of being self-aware, spending my time in this delusion of trying to get the rest of the world to match up to my delusion about how things ought to be, rather than accepting things the way that they are, or more specifically, accepting the other, which means you and anyone else that I might be in a relationship with, accepting that person exactly the way they are and exactly the way they're not. So if you're taking notes, you want to take notes and hear some of these points that we're mentioning, because the mastery of love now, we want to point you towards the end. So as we're beginning, we want you to have the end in mind, right? So begin with the end in mind. The end is, in terms of mastery of self, is to dwell on these principles, or is it principles or characteristics, of love. And as you dwell on them over time and put in place practices that would keep those things present, those distinctions and so forth present for you, then you will start to exhibit the mastery of love.
That's correct.
All right, fabulous. But you were about to say something.
Yeah, well, I was saying that we are talking about accepting and self-awareness and all that. And I can remember, first stage of our marriage, well, let's say first stage of our relationship, that's pre-marriage. And, how I think I accepted you exactly as you were.
Really?
Yeah, before we got married.
Before? Okay,
yes,
before.
Yes, that's the first stage.
Right.
Oh, I heard that really too. So I accepted you as you were. And that's why, I was madly in love with you. I still am, by the way.
You still are?
Time and space have made no difference but deepened it.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. And so
we are on a public channel, right?
So well, we are really giving you a window view of what happens with us, at home. We have those discussions all the time, and just giving you a sense of what happens, with us as we interact with each other and expound on all these biblical concepts or principles and try to apply them in our lives. So I was saying, so I really, I did accept you to the point where I couldn't wait to marry you, right? And I as I said, I truly loved you. And we got married, and I truly loved you. And when some, ugly heads or whatever started showing up, then that love was put in a test, where I realized that I did not accept some of the things, I loved you, but I wanted you to change.
So let me see if I'm getting what you're saying.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have this, there's this game, where is it? Like at the arcade, these games where a head pops up, and you're playing whack-a-mole. You're trying to you beat it down. Is that what you're saying?
It would have been fine if it were that simple.
It wasn't that simple.
No. So, yes. So, and here it is. I'm confronted with new characteristics of Baldwin. And some of them reinforced my appreciation of you. And some others just evoked just the opposite. And my response to, the revelation of these new characteristics, my reactions were not supportive of who you were. And so, and I think that my desire, strong desire and which was vehemently expressed, was to just remove those characteristics from it. It's not just remove, like just put them out.
Yeah.
Out of existence.
Excise. Well, out of existence.
Yes.
No, excise is to cut out.
Oh no.
But it's
no, it cut out. There's still a little bit left that it might grow again.
Right. So you don't even want to cut it out. You want to. So how do you put out of existence something that's in someone that you don't accept?
Well, that's the thing. So when you try to do that, what you do is that you really try to put the whole person out of existence.
Wow.
Because those characteristics are an extension or expression of the other person. And so trying to put that out, how do you select what goes and what stays? So, and what message are you giving to the other person? So my message is to you were, I don't accept you. You're not good enough. That's not who it is. God created you like this. I think he made a mistake. So I am God Jr. and I'm going to have to recreate you.
You're going to help God.
Yes.
So that's what we do.
Yeah.
We try to recreate each other into our own image rather than allowing each other to be created in the image of God.
All in the name of love.
All in the name of love. Right. And we think that the way we are expressing that is the right way. Actually, not just the right way, but the only way.
Yes.
Because since we are going to help God perfect his creation, which, I mean, God is busy. He got a big universe to run.
Of course.
He ain't got time to make us perfect.
These little details.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to work on each other and help God make each other perfectly the way that we ought to be.
And I remember how I might have said that to you. Well, I know I thought it many times. Well, if you love me, you would do this for me. Or you would change so you could accommodate me. As though I am more important than you are, or that my way of seeing things was more valid than yours.
Valid and valuable.
And valuable than yours.
Right.
And so what happens as a result of incessantly, trying to get the change, just love was extincting love. I don't know what that
Extinguishing.
Extinguishing.
Yes, you're putting out the fire of love.
Right.
And so that's what I do, or that's what I that's in my world of cluelessness, unawareness. That's what I was trying to do with Pollyanna for years and years and years.
And so was I. So was I.
And then you say, well, what in the world? How is that? How do we come to be like that? And why is it that it seems as if it's not just unique to you and I, but to people out there who love one another? And it doesn't have to be just couples. We're talking about parents with children. We're talking about friends. We're talking about neighbor to neighbor, church member to church member. People as humans try to extinguish each other from existence, and therefore,
in order to accommodate them.
Yeah. And therefore,
make them comfortable.
We kill off the possibility of love. We instead of having affinity for one another, we develop a repulsion for the other.
Definitely. We don't want to be next to that person.
Right.
Because no one wants to be in a space of rejection. And that's what basically it is. I don't accept you. You gotta go. You have to go out of existence in order for me to be comfortable and for us to have a relationship where both of us are fulfilled. And what happens as a result is that the person, responds, really resists it, and they fight because they're fighting for their life.
Yes, they're fighting to stay in existence.
Yes, exactly.
But what you're just saying just before reminds me of a cartoon that I saw in a magazine. I can't remember what magazine it was, but I saw in this magazine a couple who went to a travel agent. They're going on vacation.
Okay.
And they're going to go take a cruise. You remember how we used to like cruising back in the day? They're going on a cruise, and they go to the travel agent, and the lady says to the travel agent, instead of separate berths, on the cruise ship, she says, separate oceans, please. Because it's not good enough to be in a separate berth or a separate ship. We have to be
separate
as
ocean.
far as we can, as east is from the west. We haven't discovered yet any planet outside of Earth that is habitable for us. But we're looking because if we find a planet like that, then that's where we're going. Who's it? John Gray, who talked about Mars and Venus and the difference between men and women. One is from Mars, men are from Mars, and women are from Venus. Well, that's how it seems. Just the fact that I'm male and you're female, that's none of that difference is not enough. We're actually from separate planets. Now that we know about different galaxies and so forth, it seems as if we're from different galaxies even. Sometimes we're in close relationship with a person, and we come to find out that they're not anything like what we thought they were. Say, who are you? Where did you come from?
And then we try to avoid them because it depends on the type of relationship. Now, if it's a marital relationship, then because we paid for this license and we were declared husband and wife, then we have authority to change the other.
Oh wow!
Mercy. And so then we try to change each other. But in other relationships where we don't feel that we have that right, then we avoid. We stay away.
Like we used to be friends.
Yeah.
Or
yes.
We might even change jobs to get
change phone numbers.
Change phone numbers all
addresses.
The time. Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We avoid one another.
Right. So then accepting somebody else, it takes a lot of self-mastery, self-control to do that. But I think you have to accept yourself really first to even begin to understand how to accept somebody else. But really acceptance, self-acceptance, acceptance of others is the bottom line. The foundation is the ground.
That's where you start.
That's where you start when you talk about love. And I can think about since we talk about me interacting with you and the differences that I encountered after we got married and living with each other every day, and how I reacted, and come to realize that your differences made me miserable. Your differences made me miserable. So that's what I used to say. That I was miserable in this marriage. I mean, unhappy. Of course, didn't know that you two were miserable. Didn't realize that I was making you miserable as well as you were making me miserable. But it's really interesting to see how we live in a world, in our own world, our thoughts and our perceptions and everything. And so somehow we think that what goes on here, and that you are in my world. And so, when I'm miserable, you should know I'm miserable, and you should know what to do to make me happy.
Because I'm in your world.
Because I'm not even aware that you are in your own world by yourself.
You're not aware that there's even a possibility that there could be a different world over here.
No.
And a whole different perspective.
Exactly.
At looking at life.
Different worldview.
All right. So that's part of the awareness mechanism. Being aware that another has a different perspective. They're coming from a different place than where we are.
And accepting that.
Mm-hmm.
And being okay with that. Because there are some of us who, although we know that or we realize that, but it's still not good enough for us. That you have your own world and you see things that way, then you need to step into here. Because my way is the way, the only way. And so this acceptance thing is really.
So you're focusing on this awareness thing,
yes,
and this acceptance thing,
yes.
And what else is it that leads to mastery of love?
Mm-hmm.
Because it sounds to me like these two alone are big enough to consume us.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of mastering or not mastering love.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them seem to be quite fundamental. Mm-hmm. So beyond, is there anything else that's beyond the fundamental of awareness and acceptance that's also fundamental, or do we just use these two as bricks to build on to the other other definitions? Mm-hmm. Not definitions, other distinctions that leads to mastery of love.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can do that. We can do that. So let me make it a little more practical.
Okay.
Don Ruiz, what's his first name again? Don Ruiz.
Don
Ruiz, that's his name. Yeah. Okay. In his book, he uses the love of a baby as illustration of love, well, demonstration or expression of love.
Okay.
Where you love a baby, you accept them as they are.
Okay.
There is no expectation for the baby to be any different.
Oh.
I
There's the word.
Gonna get that.
There goes that word. So on top of acceptance, you say there is a next distinction of no expectation. So no expectation. When you live inside a world of no expectation, then you are developing mastery.
Most definitely.
Of love. Say more about that.
Yeah. Well, no expectation is operating from a place where all is well with that person. It is even that person is perfect. No flaws.
It's even that person is perfect, you say.
No flaws.
No flaws.
Yeah.
So love generates another person as perfect and flawless.
Yeah. In the face of flaws.
In the face of flaws.
Yeah. Let me tell you. The other night, Thursday night, I went to sleep so happy. I was present to that. I was so madly in love with you. I mean, I felt it. I was just consumed by loving you.
There was a thingness to it.
There was a thingness to it.
Come on now.
I was consumed by it. And here's the thing. And I was smiling because I was still present to your flaws. And I said, I love this man as he is, with all his flaws, warts and all. I love this man. And I was in glee at
Almost in bliss.
no, not almost. I was in bliss.
Come on.
I was in bliss.
Okay.
I mean, just being present
Uh-huh.
to loving you as you are. I mean, that's just a beautiful thing, I must say.
So now, is that something that develops over
Oh
time?
man, we've been married for 40 years.
Okay. The reason
Yeah.
I'm asking is because I remember a pot of rice. So,
Yeah.
so over time,
Mhm.
things have shifted
Oh, definitely.
in terms of mastering
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's acceptance, no expectation,
Mhm.
and in the world of no expectation,
Mhm.
then there is no upset because expectation
Mhm.
is
Brain generate.
generates
Yes.
upset because when the expectation is not fulfilled or is not met,
Mhm.
then we have tension and friction and that's upset.
right.
That leads to upset.
That's correct. But when you love a child, a baby,
A baby.
not even a child, because as the child grows,
We have
our
expectations.
expectations, increase.
Right.
But with a baby, there's no expectation. They need to eat, we feed them. They poo and pee, we clean them. They need to sleep, and they are awake in the middle of the night, several times in the middle of the night. And although we're exhausted, we don't just turn over and say, hey, you're going to have to deal with yourself, which is what we do to adults, to each other.
You need water.
The spouse next to me.
You get up and get the water
That's
yourself.
right. The spouse next to me, I will treat him that way. But I'll get up and crawl if I need to in order to go attend to that child, that baby, and it's done out of love. And so one of the ways to love, or the way we can the picture we can get about loving one another is to literally love as we love little baby.
So in my relationship with the other, meaning like you or anyone else, my children, and when I say children, I want to distinguish children from baby, right? So the way to master love in my relationships with everyone is to see them as baby.
Well, listen, we call each other baby. I mean, people who are in love, they call each other
hey baby.
baby.
What?
It's interesting,
Yes,
isn't it?
it is.
It's interesting. Why do we call each other baby when we're in love? And why? But yet we don't treat each other as we treat babies.
So to treat each other. Is it
maybe the emotions, the sentiment, the feeling that we have makes us, feel that this person is like they're mine. They come out of me. They are extension of me.
They're precious.
They're precious to me. And but beyond the feeling, we got to go beyond the feeling. And as we're interacting with each other, we have no expectations from the other person, unless it's agreed on, No, complete acceptance. Yeah.
So when you were describing waking up out of your bed at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning to go and take care of that little baby, someone put in the chat the word selflessness.
Yes.
So love is selflessness. So I think Don Ruiz one of his points was other-centeredness. That's a word that he used.
Yes.
Other-centeredness.
That's what we use.
Yeah, that's what love is.
Yes.
So love is acceptance. Love is other-centeredness. That's another distinction on top of acceptance is other-centeredness. And I propose that in terms of manifesting the mastery of love, this is one way for us to see love on display in ourselves as well as in other people, is whether we are or the other person is other-centered, as Jesus was all the time. He was always other-centered rather than looking about himself. He was looking about the needs of the other person. Even when he was hanging on the cross and his disciple John was at the foot of the cross, and instead of thinking about himself, he says to John, that's your mother. So I am dying, but I'm concerned about my mother. And so rather than thinking about myself, I say to John, you got the ball now. I'm passing over my accountability or my responsibility to you. You take care of her as if you are her son. And we can do that with each and every person that we interact with. We can be other-centered. We can exalt them as better than ourselves, think about them rather than thinking about ourselves. And that's what selflessness is, as was mentioned in the chat. All right. It sounds like we're moving on. We're building here. We got good mastery going.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did mention the pot of rice, and we did not say anything about it. And I think maybe you might wonder, what about that pot of rice? Well, we tell that story all the time. When we were first married, and I cooked, it was Friday afternoon, and I am displaying my culinary skills to my husband, and so I cooked a pot of rice and beans, and finished cooking it and left it on the stove to cool off, and then went to do my other duties in the house, preparing for Sabbath. I come back to the kitchen, and there was no pot on the stove. So I'm saying, what happened here? I looked around and then opened the refrigerator. The pot was in there. So I took it out. Touched it, was still hot. So I took it and put it on the, put it back on the stove. I leave and I come back. Pot not in that, back in the refrigerator. So the third time I came and he wasn't there, I lost Baldwin. And so he comes and he says, you cooked the rice is cooked, right? Yes. So you finished with it, right? Yes. Well, I put it in the fridge. I said, no, it needs to stay out on the stove so it can cool off before it goes in the fridge. And he said, no, you don't need to do that. I said, no, it needs to be. So I had my hand on the pot, telling him, this is where it is. Well, he came, took the pot from me and put it in the fridge and said, no, it doesn't need to be out here. So we go back and forth and back and forth. And so finally I said, leave my pot alone. Get out of the kitchen, And so he said, what's wrong with this? This is stupid, And so now before he says that, he's here, Baldwin is a chemist. He's into physics and chemistry and all that stuff. That's what his major, your major was, both for BA and masters, at least in your other life,
Before I became aware, in the days when I was clueless.
Yes.
Right.
And so he's here trying to tell me scientifically why it was okay to put the hot pot of rice in the refrigerator, and that there was nothing wrong with doing that. And you know, are you kidding me? I'm not listening to what this man is saying. You know, you're telling me whatever. I didn't even hear.
What does he know about cooking anyway?
And
I've
so,
never seen him cook, not even
so
a
I
boiled
said,
egg, much less.
I don't care. Leave the pot of rice on the stove, let it cool off. And he says, why not? That's stupid. And of course, I say,
Wow.
You mean my mother stupid? Now, what did my mother have to do with that conversation?
I don't know.
How did my mother get in there? and you know, I mean, it was years later when we were becoming more aware, right? That we had a discussion. What was that about? Well, the reality is that's what I saw. You know, I mean, I was born in Haiti, spent some years there, and then came to the States and watched my mom, even here in the States, you know, cook and let the food cool off, especially Friday afternoon for Sabbath, and then put it in the fridge. So that's what I knew. And you never think about those things. You know, you never think, where did it come from, or does it really make sense, or anything. That's what I saw. That's what I learned. And I learned it from my mama. So you're insulting my mama.
Mercy.
You see to the depth, to the level that I went and took offense to what he said and was trying to do. I took it that he was rejecting my mama, my saint mama,
sainted mother. Yes.
Yes, and so this really tells you. I mean, there are many lessons that we've learned from that story, but one of them is how our beliefs and values and habits are deep rooted and where they come from. You know, and how unconscious we are of these beliefs or of the origin of those, as though we created them or we chose them. We didn't choose them, they chose us, because that's what we grew into. We are literally the product of our home environment, of our childhood environment. And we don't think about those things when we interact with each other. You know, we don't think about those. I didn't think that you too came from a different, had a different background that created your worldview that was different than mine. And you didn't either, because we were trying to force each other into being something that we couldn't be. And that's what we do in the name of love.
Yeah. So I don't think we intentionally try to force each other into being that way. It is just, something that comes about based on the lack of awareness, and everything else.
And relationship
that
education
we've said.
too.
So
really,
far.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you said another word, relationship education. You got to catch
We'll
these
talk about
things,
that after.
We'll
We'll bring that up.
It's part of it.
Okay, I know,
it's in the flow. So let's stay with the flow.
We'll stay with the flow.
Relationship education. So over the years, and as you said, we'll talk about it some more, but over the years, that is what has led towards what we call the mastery of love, is being educated. And that being educated, we're not talking about traditional classroom education, because we've had enough of that didn't make a hill of beans difference. What we're talking about is sitting down and taking the time to think about these concepts that we've been talking about, taking the time to reflect on how did I get to be the way that I am? Why is it that in my relationship with another person, whoever that person is, friend or foe, family, or friend, how is it that I impact the relationship such that it is the way that it is. Most of us look at the other person and say, it's because they are the way that they are.
That's why.
Why the relationship is the way that it is.
And that's why I react this way.
You made me do this.
Right.
You know, if you were different, like the way you were supposed to be, then I would be different.
Right. And I'm miserable. You make me miserable.
Right.
It's not my choice.
Right.
I have nothing to do with it. I'm not even conscious. So
Actually, there's no way that I could have anything to do with it because I am perfect. I'm already perfect. And so if there's anything in the relationship that's not working, it's coming from over there where you are. Because if you were the way you were supposed to be, then the relationship would be just as perfect as I am perfect. The Bible says, for us to be perfect, even as our Father in heaven is perfect.
That's correct.
So I am perfect as my Father in heaven is perfect. You're the one who needs to be perfect.
Yes.
So let me tell you a secret. So we're counseling people all the time, right? Individuals as well as couples. We do group work with folks in churches and in retreats and all this kind of thing.
And secular places too.
One of the major things we encounter is that one person will drag the other person to a retreat because the other person needs to be fixed. And therefore, what they want is the support from Pollyanna and myself, supporting them in fixing the other person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because they're perfect. And so with all, and so I speak generally for men because it's not always the men who are dragged, but, predominantly is, I would say it's more than 50% of the men who are dragged to these sessions. And so I speak on behalf of all the men who are being dragged to relationship improvement. Know that both of us are flawed.
Yes, indeed.
And what there is for both of us to do is to accept ourselves the way we are so that we can create a space of awareness to begin accepting the other exactly as they are and exactly as they're not, right? So allow yourself to be dragged to these sessions, whether it's reading a book, the two of you read a book together or watch a particular movie with the intent of learning from what's in the video.
Yeah, and discussing it afterwards.
Or be together and have conversations for clarity. That's another word. Conversation for clarity.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll remember that. We'll come to that.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, it's here.
List, yeah.
Okay, it's right there. Have conversations for clarity so that there is an openness for understanding between the two of you.
Yes.
Because the book says, seek wisdom, but in all that you're seeking, seek understanding. And that understanding is who am I, and seek understanding is who are you, the other person.
So this brings to mind an incident that happened with us, and where when we had moved to Barron Springs, you were pastoring in Lansing, and anyway, so Byron had the orthodontist all the way in Waukegan,
Illinois.
And in Waukegan, Illinois, and we lived in Barron Springs, Michigan. That was like 3 hours away from it,
or at least 12, yeah.
3 hours away. And so Byron had an appointment to see the orthodontist, right? And you were not able to go, and I was not able to go to take him either. And Byron was like 16 years old. 16 years old. He got his driver's license at 14, I think. Was it 14? No, 16. he had just gotten his driver's license, like in the summer or late spring. And you remember? And so Baldwin told Byron, "Oh, here's the key. Take your brother with you and go. You can go to the appointment." Now, mind you, it's 3 hours away, and the appointment was for I think 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock, whatever time it was. Told him take it away. But here's the thing: it had just snowed, and it was not heavy snow. But it was snow. The boy had just gotten his driver's license, didn't get enough practice to drive from here to the grocery store in the first place. And he's sending him all the way to, Waukegan, Illinois, 3 hours away, which means it might take him hours because of the snow. And telling the boy, I said, what? I was livid. I said, no, he's not going. No, he's not going. We're going to change the appointment, and he'll go when one of us can go. And I did that in front of the children. And I picked up the phone right there, and I, canceled the appointment, because there's no way. In fact, I felt like, what kind of man is that? What kind of husband is that?
What kind of man and
that
what
you
kind of husband is that?
your child's life, not just one, but two, both of them, my 2 sons.
And both of them could have been killed in some accident,
What?
right?
He didn't have the experience to drive all that way there, and I lost it. And so he didn't go. They didn't go. And Baldwin was, mad and said nothing. And luckily for us, we had an appointment with our counselor. So that's one thing we took advantage of too. We saw a counselor because we weren't doing well. We saw a counselor. And we had an appointment that afternoon with the counselor. And I didn't know that we were going, since you said you weren't able to take him to Waukegan. And so later on, I just decided, okay, let me ask about 12:15, 12:20. Are we going to the appointment? I mean, of course, I'm still mad, that you would have done that to my children. And let me tell you the other thing that got me mad is that I felt guilty for doing that in front of the children. I felt bad for doing that to him in front of the kids. And felt bad for doing it the way I did, because there was no censoring of myself. There was just an outburst of, disappointment and whatever it was. And so I felt kind of bad about that, but me feeling bad, I faulted you for me having to do that to you.
I made you do that.
Yes, in the presence of the children, and talking to you that way. And
because if I'd been the man or the husband that I'm supposed to be, I would never have done that.
It made no sense to me at all.
Right.
And so I was mad for 2 reasons, or several reasons. Mad at you for doing that, to exposing my children. They are my children.
Right.
And then second, for you causing me to talk to you that way, and I had to make that decision in front of the children and call and do all this and that. Anyway, so he said he was going, right? He said, well, I'm going. I said, okay. So we went. We drove to the counselor, Benton Harbor, never said a word to each other. And when we got to the counselor, so he said, all right, how you guys doing? No answer. So he said, okay, what's happening today? Somebody tell me, what happened. Of course, I have no issues with self-expression. I had no problem telling him exactly what happened to the letter. So I explained to him what happened. And still indignant, So this is what the counselor said. So if this same situation arose in your home when you were growing up, how would it pan out? What would have happened? And, I was always eager to be the one to speak anyway. I had no problem saying. And he said, Baldwin, why don't you start? That was such a blessing. Eh? He said, Baldwin.
It's good to have a good counselor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
He said, Baldwin, why don't you start? And Baldwin said, well, if it happened in my home, if this were in my home, he said, they'd give me the key and tell me go to go see the doctor. And he said, when I was 16 years old, same age, my brother was at the academy. No, you were 17 because you were in college then, right? Were you in college then? Yes, probably. You came home.
Yes.
You came home and you were 17, and your brother was at the academy. And so his mother and father couldn't go pick up because it was vacation time, Thanksgiving or something like that. And so his parents, why do you want to tell the story? Why am I telling it for you?
Why are you telling my story?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why you're telling my story.
Yeah,
So the story is that I was given the key, and this was a Buick Skylark. It was a gold Buick Skylark. You told me to tell the story, right?
Yeah, okay, dear.
Now,
say it your way.
Now, usually what happens is that for me, I'm not usually verbose. I'm not usually talkative or tell story with details, because usually when stuff happens and she asks me, what happened, for example, if I'm at a function, let's say a wedding or whatever, and I come home and so, well, how was the function? Whether a wedding or funeral or whatever it is, I say it was fine.
It doesn't tell me about the bride, what she was dressed, or did she look? No idea like that.
No details.
Yeah.
It was just fine. Mm-hmm. But now I'm trying to tell the story with some details.
That's good.
Well, anyway, so I'm given this task of going up to the school, which is over an hour away, to go and pick up my brother. And my father and my mother thinks that's fine. A licensed by the state driver. And I go and pick up my brother and come back without incident. Of course, along the way, I at 17, I'm pushing that Skylark to its limit. Which if my parents knew, they'd be terrified. But that's the reality of a 17-year-old driver. They take risks and challenges. So when the counselor asked, well, how would it have gone in your family if that situation arose? Well, that's how it would have gone. That's how it actually did go in my home. And so I was following that pattern by giving, my son the key to go to the doctor.
Right.
And then he asked.
And then he asked me, how about you, Pollyanna? How would it happen? I said, my daddy would have taken me. And if he couldn't do it, he would have changed the appointment and make a new appointment when he would have been available. Because in my home, my father drives us around and drove us around. And he even drove my mother. I remember my mother wanted to get her driver's license. And, it was like, he acted as though it was an insult, and he was deflated by my mother wanting to get a driver's license, because somehow maybe he found joy in taking my mother around, even to the grocery store, wherever. He'll sit in the car, but he'll drive her wherever it is. So that's how it would have happened with me, that my father would have taken me there, would not have left it to me or anybody else at 16 years old to drive their beloved sons, to that.
So now, how did the counselor respond to the revelation that it would have gone these different ways in our home?
Yeah, and he said, "Now you understand why you are the way you are and why you reacted that way. You understand why he did what he did? Because that's what he knows. He's a reflection, and you are a reflection of your home environment. And what we do is that we carry those in our relationships. We carry those in our marriage. We carry them in all our relationships. And we make judgments. we judge each other. We criticize each other. We do all these things to each other for what they do and how they express themselves, not realizing that their ways are as valid as ours.
Yeah.
That was like a huge lesson for me. Huge. I think that's when I came to realize, oh, we do have things.
Well, listen, it's one of the times.
Yes.
It's one of the times that you have this epiphany,
yes,
this revelation. But here's what love is. It's a continual unfolding of the revelation.
Yes.
A continual unfolding of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And this continual unfolding transforms who you are in the relationship and transforms the relationship itself over time. And we've got to get with the rolling of that ongoing revelation, that ongoing unconcealing or revealing ourselves to ourselves and to each other. Because as that continues over time, we become different, the relationship becomes different, and you've got to be with that, with those changes, with those transformations that take place over time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll get stuck in a particular place, or you will have your partner in your mind be stuck in a particular place, or a box. We put each other in a box. Well, the partner is the way they is. You think I don't know English, huh? But the partner is the way they are. And we don't make room for the ongoing, unconcealing, unfolding of who they are. And so we have to appreciate the flower as it blooms, right?
I like
and as the flower blooms, it like gets more beautiful with each unfolding of each petal.
Yes.
So the mastery of love requires that there's another word.
Yes.
Having awe, expressing awe at the unfolding beauty of the other in the relationship.
Yes, discovering.
Actually, for many of us as parents, we do appreciate the unfolding of the other, especially from a little baby, up to about 2. Because at about 2, we start to experience what we call the terrible 2s.
Yes.
And then, then we start having challenges with accepting the unfolding of the person.
Yeah, and that's actually happening to me with my 2-year-old our 2-year-old granddaughter, with our granddaughter. When before that, any little thing she used to do, you was, and then, and we say it around them, we make a big deal about the little things they do. And then now, as they turn 2, we're trying to shape and roll them, and all this. And then we're trying to get it out of them. And of course, they resist that. But whenever I'm present to that, when I'm around her, and I say to myself, you love her as a baby, Remember a year ago, 2 years ago, how you were enamored by the things she did? Continue to be enamored, And so it's a conscious thing that when I'm around her, and not just her, but other children who are growing up, and you're starting to develop more expectations, for them. And imagine when you're grown.
How about the 67-year-old baby that you have who you've been with for 40 years?
Yeah.
Do you still appreciate the unfolding?
Almost definitely. And I tell you that too.
So when you've been with someone for a while, don't put them in a box and try to keep them as they are. Allow them to become all that God would have them to be, and appreciate each revelation of self that is manifested, and continue to treat one another as little babies.
Yes. So I have a question here. All right. Somebody said, but somebody must be the voice of reason. Who says that you are the reason? Who says your voice is the voice of reason?
Watch it now.
It's really justification. That's all it is. Really, in relationship, we accept people as they are, even when they do what we might think is wrong. And and we do love to say they are not doing the will of God. And if my husband is not doing what God is, God wants him to do, I don't have to subject myself to him. I don't have to, follow him. And so there's no condition. There's no condition in love. There is love. And just look at the way God treats us, interacts with us. He loves us as we are. Jesus died for us as we are. He didn't say, I want you to change, and if you change, then I'll die for you. He didn't do that. So really, it's there's no condition or justification in being right, in being right and making the other person wrong, in validating ourselves and invalidating the other person.
No, validating ourselves.
Validating ourselves and invalidating the other person. There's no justification in that. Another person asked.
Let me deal with that one.
Yes.
But before we get to that one.
Yes.
So back to the person who asked about the voice of reason.
Yes.
In the intention to be aware of self, there's required this ongoing exercise and recognition that I'm not necessarily all that God would have me to be. And if I were that perfect, then that person would be in a space in my presence that would be in a space of perfect love. And perfect love, according to the book, drives out all fear, because all it has is acceptance. And in the space of perfect love, in the space of perfect acceptance, we create a space of healing for the other, where the other can begin to become self-aware, begin to become self-accepting. And as they become self-aware and self-accepting, they start to be connected to you in that safe space. Without that safe space of connecting, there's no healing. There's no
transformation either.
There's no transformation.
Because change has to be a choice. By the person has to choose. You can choose for me. I can choose for you to change. I choose to change. And even then, self-awareness, being aware of the need to change has to be present. And so, but in the space of safety and acceptance by the other, then I'm compelled to change. And that's when transformation takes place, because, you do what it takes, whatever is possible, and with the help of God, you ask God to transform you, to work with you, and to send all opportunities to aid you, equip you in developing, in changing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I just remembered another word that I'm experiencing in right now with you, and that word is connection. So we could spend literally hours and hours talking with you about connection and what that is all about. But I want to answer the next question inside of this word connecting, and maybe we'll flesh out the word connecting a little bit. But the other question is this. Here's the question. I saw someone. What's the best way to not bring your family upbringing into your marriage? Now, this is. I want you to hear the good news inside of the bad news that I'm telling you. So here's the bad news. The bad news is that it's impossible to not bring your family upbringing into your current relationship, because your family upbringing is who you are. You might consider it baggage, like a suitcase that you can put down and pick up whenever you want. Well, it's not really like that. It's part of who you are, and so it's impossible. That's the thing in relationships. When stuff is not going the way we want it to go, and we think it's going bad, we think we can move somewhere else, or go to another relationship, go to another space and time, some other person, and things will get better. Except that when you go to another person, or you go to another place, another space and time, who shows up there?
There's a constant.
You show up there.
That's right.
With all of your baggage that you brought from wherever you picked up the baggage, because that baggage is now who you are. So that sounds like the bad news. But here's the thing.
Yes.
In the mastery of love that we're talking about, these distinctions, once you have the distinction, you can operate inside of the distinction. So you have these distinctions of awareness, acceptance, and all the other things that we've mentioned so far. Once you are present to that, you have the power of choice, and you can choose to be impacted by the quote unquote baggage, or you can choose to be moved by the distinction that you're present to. So that's the good news. That's the saving news, is that being present to distinctions put you at choice. And when you are at choice, you now have the power to transform the experience of interaction with the other. And the way you transform the experience of your interaction with the other is through connecting.
That's correct.
And in connecting, you stay out here in the space between you and the other, rather than dwelling in that chatter that's in the back of your head. And you're talking to yourself really, and not to the other person.
And not even aware that you're talking to yourself.
Right. And thinking that, all these expectations and, all this other stuff is out here. Only what we say to each other and put in the space between us is part of reality.
Right.
Everything else is fantasy in the back of your head. And most of us, and when I say most, listen to this. When I say most, I literally mean 95 or more % of us
99.9
are living back here in the back of our head in this fantasy world.
99.9.
99%. No, it can't be that high. Because we are having this conversation with you, and you're being impacted not just by this conversation, you're impacted by your own personal worship and reading of the Bible. You're impacted by other books that you're reading. You're impacted by counseling sessions that you go to. You're impacted by all kinds of things. So it could not be 99.9, but it is high. It is a high percentage of us who are living back here rather than living out here in the space between us, because this is where it's real. What I say to you and what you say to me is part of reality.
Yes.
And let's deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's deal with accepting each other and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So, in talking about bringing our childhood, our home environment into marriage, into our marriage, since that was the question. It's really interesting when I think of. I remember when you one day, I said to Baldwin, "I love you," and he said, "Thank you." You remember? Well, it happened many times, And he said, and I said, well, maybe he didn't hear what I said. So I got closer to him, looked at him in the eye, and said, "Oh, Baldwin, I love you." And he looked at me in the eye and said, "Thank you." So, I was a little annoyed, but I left it alone. Another time, I did that again, and he said, "Thank you." So I said, "What's wrong with this man?" I didn't say that out loud. Again, it was right here, that inner chatter. And I said, "What's wrong with this man? I'm telling him that I love him, and he does not respond to me. He doesn't think that I need to hear that he loves me too. And maybe me telling him I love you was for me to hear him telling me. He may not have been for you to experience my expression of love. But it could have been a ploy for you to tell me that I love you, right?"
Right.
And
so in other words, sometimes what we say to each other is not about what we're saying to the other. It's about a request.
Our intent.
A request or intent on our part to elicit from the other something, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
So anyway, I said, and so I was not happy, and I think I might have done it again. And I said, "I'm never gonna tell him I love him again, because how can he tell me thank you? Thank you for what? And I was just not happy about that. And so I vowed not to tell him I love you. And not too long after, we went to Baldwin's home, to visit his parents. And, we walked in and talking, etc. And so I go and I give my father-in-law a hug and say, "I love you, Daddy." And he says, "Thank you." It just jolted me, It just jolted me when I heard him say that. I said, "Wait a minute. Okay." So another time during our stay, I tried it again, and he repeated, "Thank you." And and so it was just a shock for me. And so what happens is that in my home, we were 9 siblings. My mom and dad, my father expressed love, to my mother, and my mother to my father openly to us. They would tell each other, "I love you." They would, would call each other these little names, and all this stuff, and shoo and whatever, and show expressions, look at each other, and you could, and they did that with us. And, on the phone, we always end our calls with each other, "I love you." When we're with each other, we're on top of each other, hugging, and "I love you," and all that stuff. So I'm coming from that world, and somehow I'm expecting that he's coming from that world too. Well, actually, you don't think about those things. I'm just expecting that his response would be what I received in my home. And when I did not get that, I was not happy. And so with Baldwin, that was different. When love was expressed, at least to his dad, and he was told, "I love you," he said, "Thank you." And actually, he did not get that when he was growing up. That was not expressed in his home.
So for him to say thank you was even an advancement
beyond
where he came from.
He was grateful to be told, "Thank you, I love you." And so he, growing up in that environment, whenever that was done, his father would say, thank you. That was an unconscious reaction. And I took him to be wrong for having said what he said, because he should have done it my way, which was to say, I love you and all that stuff, because that's what I was accustomed to. And it was really interesting. So years have passed. You know, when I'm on the phone with him, his father, I would say, I love you, Daddy. He would continue to say thank you. And every time I smile, every time he did that, I smile. And, you know, so, and we talk to each other all the time. And not recently, when did we go to Jamaica? In February. In February, we did a workshop at a church in Jamaica, and my father-in-law was there. It was a 4-hour workshop that really helped people from their childhoods, issues, etc., and on and on. And my father-in-law was there, and I shared that story. And he was impacted actually by that workshop. And I shared that story, and I was looking at him, and he smiled, he laughed, you know, etc., when I said it. And do you know, ever since then, every time I or anybody says, I love you to him, he responds, I love you. I am so touched, you know, just still touched. He responds, I love you.
And he's 97 years old, which means that you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
And
of course, Baldwin has learned to say, I love you too.
Isn't that wonderful? That's fabulous. So back to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. The first phrase in there is love is patient.
Yes.
It may take 40 years. I don't know if that's good news or bad news to somebody, but be patient with one another as we travel this road, as we experience transformation together.
Yes, actually, you know, when we talk about the characteristics of love, this is the first one in this passage. The first one, patience. That tells you how important it is. You know, be patient with each other, realizing that you are not, your expectation of the other is based on something unrealistic, because you too are flawed. We are all flawed.
All right, so listen, we've been just chattering around, chattering. And so there is something else that I have for you. I don't know how much time, you know, we have about 20 minutes left or less. But what I want to deal with you on is another passage. So if you're taking notes, write this passage down. This is part of the mastery of love.
Yes.
It's Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 to 32. What a passage, huh? So Pollyanna has become expert in this passage.
My husband is just...
Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 to 32. If you can literally memorize this passage in whatever version of the Bible you want to memorize it in, but if you can memorize this, and each sentence or each phrase, if you can begin to distinguish each of those sentences and phrases and find a way to implement in your life what the Holy Spirit teaches you what this phrase or this sentence means, you can literally develop the mastery of love by implementing the principles expressed in each of these phrases.
Yes.
All right? So that's part of your homework. I want you to take that in and study it in detail. All right? In detail. And you and I can come back together on another occasion and talk some more about that passage and all that you've learned from it and how it can actually, not how it can, but how it has transformed your life, your relationships, your interactions with each other. All right?
Yes. And we'll tell you more about that passage too. So,
Pollyanna is looking at one of the
some of the questions.
And so we will get back to you as we move along.
Yes. So there's a question.
All right. So
yes. How do you master your relationship when your mate is not interested in changing or trying? The love is there, but the communication is distant sometimes. Remember, when you say the mate is not interested in changing, that means there is something wrong with them that they need to get rid of. And you are expressing it to them that they need to change. And as we have said before, the more you insist, the more they will persist.
Resist.
Resist.
Mm-hmm.
The more you let them know how flawed they are, and that they have to, you're trying. They interact with you as though you are trying to put them out of existence, which is what it is that's happening. When you tell somebody to change, when you tell them to change, you're saying you're not good enough for me. And you got to become somebody different that I decide how you will be. And the person will receive that as rejection. And when people are rejected, they will do anything to position themselves and stay in existence. So what you do, if they continue to exist as they feel they should, accept.
I can't accept them the way they are. That's why I'm trying to change them.
You married them.
No, they need help. I need to change them into the way they should be.
I think sometimes one of the ways that I have been able to, grow and deal with, some situations with you and me is that, if I'm upset to you about something and, I don't say anything because, that's working in here. And I would say to myself, Pollyanna, Baldwin puts up with all your foolishness and he doesn't complain. So you stop it. You know better. Just let it go.
You say that to yourself?
I say that to myself. And then I let it go. Because the reality is we are all flawed. We all are imperfect. We are all imperfect beings trying to make it. And the only thing that can keep us together and keep us focused and keep us, expressing, accepting each other is that thing that, that thing, thingless, that we call love.
Yeah.
Which is God. God is the only one that can actually keep us together. I will say that God gives us opportunities to learn more about ourselves, to get use professionals to assist us, and all those are resources that we need to use for our growth and development, and that help us. Self-awareness, they make a world of difference. And I tell you, the love of God is the glue.
That sounds like Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because God has forgiven us.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore we ought to be forgiving each other just as God in Jesus Christ has forgiven us.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all an expression of love.
Yes.
Like I said, we could spend the entire session talking to you about some of these biblical passages because they have so much meat, so much meat, so much meaning in them. So one of the other passages is 1 John chapter 4, verse 7 to 21. If you could just write that, 1 John chapter 4, verse 7 to 21. Now, of course, it's too long for us to read right now. Make that part of your homework as well. Dear friends, it begins, let us love one another because love is from God, and everyone who loves has been fathered by God and knows God. The person who does not love, and when we say the person who does not love, we're talking about love in all the fullness of what we've said this afternoon.
That's correct.
The person who does not love does not know God because God is love.
That's it.
And by this, the love of God is revealed in us, that God has sent his one and only Son into the world that we may live through him, that we may live through him. And he is love. And so as we live through this love, because we're born into this love, God manifests this love to us without us having to do anything to qualify for it. And in this love, we are made whole. We are made perfect through his love, forgiveness, washing us by the water, by the word. That's another passage.
Yes, we're good another time.
We'll get to that one in another time. Okay. Well, love is all over the Bible. Love is everywhere. And that's who God is. And he manifests himself to us or through us with this love. All right.
Yes. Let's see if we have any other question.
No, I think we answered those. Let's look here and see what directions we have. All right.
Okay.
We want to let everybody know that today's session, as well as the 7 previous sessions that we have had, that these sessions have been recorded and you can find them on Northeastern Conference YouTube channel.
And Facebook as well.
So tell your friends, tell everybody to subscribe to the NEC YouTube channel, and please remember to share this with everybody and like the channel, because when you like the channel, it draws other people to the channel as well. And as you take some of these distinctions of love and share it in the world, you create a world of love for you to dwell in. And part of the mastery of love is multiplying the love, increasing the love everywhere so that other people can bask in it, can swim in it, can be just overwashed with the love. So that's what I'm saying right now is actually part of the, what you could call the exegesis, you might say, of Ephesians chapter 5. That passage where it says, husbands, love your wives. From there on down, one of the concepts that's in that passage is that Jesus loved us. Jesus loved the church, and he formed the church. Listen to this languaging. I love this languaging. He formed the church and made her holy and sanctified her, which is what made her holy means, and cleansed her. Here's the phrasing: by the washing of water by the word. By the washing of, I just love that phrasing. What it's saying is that there's a flow, there's a stream of words that are flowing out of the mouth of Jesus that creates his church, that transforms his church. That means you and I. He takes us as sinners, as traitors, those who had, beef against him. We have beef against God. Can you imagine? Transgressors, people full of iniquity and sin. We are upset at God. Adam, where are you? I'm behind the bush over here. what you doing over there behind the bush? Well, I was hiding because you was walking through the garden, and I heard your footsteps coming. And why are you hiding behind the bush, Adam? Well, the woman that you gave me, she the one who made me eat of the fruit, see? And so we're blaming everybody else but ourselves for our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing that ever since our brother Adam started it. And so we blame others rather than allowing ourselves to be accountable and allowing ourselves to be transformed by the love of God.
Yes, yes.
And God has given us the power to love one another the same way that He has loved us.
Yes.
Allowing a flow, a stream of words to come out of our mouth that transforms the relationship, that transforms the space between us so that it's safe, so that it's full of nothing but positivity, no negativity. It allows for the healing of the other. And that's what this mastery of love is all about.
That's wonderful. So we have, we hope that we've been able to take that, thing less concept and brought it down from the realm of God into our realm, where we can understand and identify with God's love for us, and God being love. And that's who it is that's what we need to presence. We presence God whenever we love one another, the way that as it is described in the Word of God, we presence God. So it's been we have really enjoyed these sessions. I have enjoyed the sessions. We had 3 different segments, and the first one was parenting. Parenting education, and we thank all the guests who came in and blessed us with that segment. We got a lot of feedback from it. And the second segment was about mental health. And especially the one on depression, we got a lot of feedback, and many people were blessed by it. And of course, the third one was relationship dynamics, family dynamics, I think, with last week with the dailies, and then today with the Barnes. And we've been enriched by the series, and we hope that you have been. And so, ending this series with the mastery of love, or mastering love. God leads us in whatever we plan, whatever programs we plan, and we came up with this as the last session, realizing that it was very fitting, actually, mastery of love. And so I have written a book that actually talks about my transformation. I mean, we talked about love, but it really talks about my transformation in this relationship and in all my relationships, but especially in my relationship with Baldwin, because I was so miserable when we were going through the adjustment period, and come to realize that my misery was self-induced. I was unaware, and I didn't get any relationship education, but God has led us along the way. We have learned so much. We have become relationship educators. We are relationship experts. I will dare say so. And everything we learned, we had to work it on us. We had to practice it on us individually and together. And God has blessed us over the years. We've been married for 40 years. And so this book is really is on communication, but it's not the communication that you understand as, you know, the dynamics of talking to each other and, you know, and all these things. It's totally has to do with you and awareness and your childhood experiences and, you know, all those different things that were God had sent my way for my transformation that helped me be who I am today. And
what's the title of the book?
Oh, it's called Speak Your World. Speak Your World.
Speak Your World.
Speak Your World. Oh, there it is, Gabrielle. Thank you. So it's Speak Your World.
Speak Your World.
Powerful communication causing unimaginable living.
Wow.
And I will say that
sounds
my life is unimaginable. You know, I am married to the most wonderful men in the world.
so that book will make me say things like that if I read that?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Most definitely.
Okay.
You know, and
I'm going to get a copy.
Yeah. So so the book will be available at the end of this month. You can go to Amazon. I'll just tell you, like, last days of the month after Christmas. I would have loved for it to have come before that so you could use it as a gift, because I think if you want to give somebody a gift, that's the best gift you can give to them. A lot of self-disclosure in that book. And in fact, when I read, I said, should I really tell all that stuff about myself? You know, but I think I pray that it makes a difference in somebody's life. And so it is coming in a couple of weeks. Go to Amazon and just type my name and you'll see Speak Your World. And you have the power to create your life. You have the power to create the life that you love, to have your dreams come true, to have the greatest relationship that you could even imagine. In fact, what this book says is that if you master those principles in the book, you will speak in such a way that you will create an unimaginable life.
Wow. So like living a designer life.
Yes.
And with God,
yes,
we are designing the life that we want to live.
Definitely.
Fabulous. Well,
thank you. So I'd like to do one thing. So
you have about 1 minute.
Yeah, well, that's plenty of time. So I'm going to give away 2 books. That's it. 2 books. You are literally the first people who know about this. I have not shared it with anyone else. We haven't shared it yet. And the 2 people, my email address is pbarnes@northeastern.org. The first 2 people who send me request this book, Speak Your World, I will mail it to you when it comes out.
What's your email address again?
Oh, pbarnes@northeastern.org.
pbarnes@northeastern.org.
Yes. Give me your name and your address, just like as we did before with the other authors. And I will make sure that the first 2 people will get that book as a gift from us, from Baldwin and me. And may your life be transformed as mine was transformed.
Thank you for coming. God bless you. And let's have a closing word of prayer.
Yes.
Lord, we thank you for leading us through these 8 sessions and today's session in particular. We thank you for all who have come to share with us, and we pray your blessings on them in Jesus' name. Amen.
Our next session will start on Valentine's Sabbath.
Valentine's Sabbath.
Yes, it will be about the pursuit of love, happiness, and bliss. Wow. That will be the next series.
Okay, we'll see you next year, 2021, on Valentine's Day.
Happy holidays. God bless you.
Bye-bye.